Hello, people of the internet, it's Amanda. And before we start, I just want to address how crazy my hair looks right now. I honestly don't know what happened, but I just can't manage do anything about it, so let's just leave it at that. But anyways, so today's video is actually inspired by a Twitter interaction that I've had with Once Upon a Jdrama, where we talked about Japanese teacher characters that we usually watch on dramas and movies. And this all started with me doing the J-drama challenge on Twitter, where I talk about, certain like dramas or characters or movies, given certain prompts in terms of like what's assigned for the day or stuff like that. And since I was talking about my favorite or my best male leads from a J-drama in that particular aspect, I mentioned Hiragi Ibuki from 3-Nen A-Gumi, and that sort of like spiraled into this entire conversation. Now, currently, I'm a part-time English teacher, Japanese students, and it's definitely a dream come true for me because ever since I was young, I've always been fascinated by the teaching profession, mainly because of both Western and Eastern influences. For West, it's definitely like Dead Poet Society with Robin Williams is one of my favorite films ever. And that, along with J-dramas such as Great Teacher Onizuka and Gokusen with the Yankumi, and again with 3-Nen A-Gumi as well just recently. So there's just a lot of like these teacher characters or teacher personalities that we get to see in pop culture that I feel like, definitely and heavily influenced me wanting to become one. And when I became one, and the first time that someone actually called me teacher or sensei, it was such a massive thing. Like, it was such a big deal. I was like literally raving about it. And I just love seeing my students now, grow from when we started to like how we are now. And it's not really that much since I don't meet them personally, like we do everything virtually, but there's still the sense of accomplishment on my part, seeing that they're improving and progressing. And I feel like that in itself, it's not remotely as close to like these teachers and these pop culture references, but there is that I feel like it added to why I'm very much, passionate about this entire thing. Now, with that said, so I just wanted to create this very brief video. Hopefully it's brief, but knowing me, it would probably be not. But the reason why I wanted to make this video, why I got inspired to make this video, is because through that conversation, I had this sort of like epiphany as to why I feel like these types of storylines resonate so well with a lot of people. Like, I know for a fact that 3-Nen A-Gumi, for example, and Great Teacher Onizuka and Gokusen, they're still talked about a lot, even after years when these types of dramas or movies have came out. And the reason for that is because I feel like people don't really experience this type of like figure in their lives, or we've had our fair share of inspirational teachers or teachers who pushed us into like in terms of our academic or even our personal lives, like impacting us in some way, but never to these types of extremities or extent. And obviously these are works of fiction, but then again, like sometimes teachers also, like, it's always limited to just gifted students or students that they favor, where they really extend themselves to, which is the reality that we live in. Like, we even, like, for my own experience, it's very rare to have like teachers who would go out of their way to find out what's happening with like a problematic student. Like it's usually just them reprimanding or trying to correct what they're doing, but not really getting to the bottom of why they're like that in the first place. And even I myself, like, I have been one of those, like, not really totally straight laced students, but again, like I've definitely like earned the favor of a couple of teachers because of how I do or how I did academically back when I was, say, in high school. But there's still a lot of expectation for you to not flop or to not make any mistake. Like if they have this sort of like vision of you, then you have to stick by that. And if you stray away from that, like there's always a sense of you're not what we're expecting you to be. And I feel like that is such a huge contrast to what we see in pop culture, mainly because I feel like generally, whether it be Western or Eastern pop culture in general is such a huge reflection of people's aspirations, like what we see, what we want to see. It is a commentary or something that is relatable to us in real life, but at the same time it also mimics a lot of our aspirations and wishes for what we want society to be. And I think that's definitely the beauty of these types of works, is because they're trying to sort of like give us a perspective of what we're craving for. And as much as you want it to reflect in real life, these types of works also sometimes serve as an escapism for that kind, because it's something that we continuously hope for and aspire to have. And in some ways I feel like it might impact certain individuals who get to watch these things, and even if it's not reflective of real life, it might be because of the inspiration that it motivates or encourages. And I think that's the same thing with me. Like my teaching style has been inspired by these types of works that I've seen. Like for example, I know that whenever a student is struggling towards, something, I've always tried to tweak my classes, not just based on correcting someone or teaching them, but I also want it to be based on their interest so that they would be very engaged with what we're talking about. I noticed that there's a huge difference when a person starts talking about the things that they like versus something that is a very fixed module for them to learn from. And that's why I usually, like, even if we have a curriculum, like sometimes they ask me to pick out a material for me to teach. After that entire thing, like after we've gone through the technicalities of vocabulary, of pronunciation, of reading, whenever I start going, like straying out a bit from the module and just start talking to them and trying to improve their way of speech through casual conversation, they literally light up and start, talking about their passions. And that's when you see the actual progress happening. Because people, I feel like, and I've learned this a bit way too late when I entered college, is that people are so much more than just numbers or or how they perform based on certain parameters. There's a story to each person that they also want to share. And sometimes, because teachers are meant to teach, people get so fixated with the idea that it's just supposed to be like sticking to this particular curriculum, when in fact, like, one thing that I've learned as a teacher is that it's definitely a mutual relationship. Like they learn from me and I learn from them as well. And I always make it a point to tell my students that I'm curious about them as well. Like I want to learn about them as well. And it's okay, so I correct grammar or pronunciation or anything in terms of technicalities, but I do that after our classes whenever I send in notes, and I invite them to send me questions if they have one. Because I've heard some complaints where people, when they get interrupted in the middle of them talking about something that they like, they lose interest in it because I don't have like the confidence. Like that's one of the major issues that I've gotten from my students is every time they try to like talk about something they're passionate about, but they're still not fluent in the language, in the middle of them saying a sentence, teachers kept on correcting and correcting and correcting and correcting them to the point that they're instead of them being inspired to talk, it just diminishes their confidence in sharing because they don't know how to say things properly. And I don't know, like I guess that's just how teaching dynamic is like in real life. But I'm very thankful by watching, like by having these pop culture influences in my life, that I sort of like it helped me sort of like be more open with my own teaching style. And I don't know, I just felt like talking about it as well because I feel like again that's the main reason why these types of narratives never get old. Like even if you rewatch them over and over again, there are certain themes in it that still resonates really well with audiences because it's really something that we want. We want not just a teacher in terms of profession, but also a life mentor that is definitely outside of like seeing someone exert outside of just what they're asked to do and actually teaching you the core of what studying should be like or what being a student should be like it's just beyond numbers. Of course, like there is a metric. It would be sad to say that oh, grades don't totally matter. I mean, to some extent it does because that's how the world works, but at the same time, at the end of the day, people are also just people, and many people who didn't perform academically well are excelling in other aspects of their lives. And on the flip side, like people who also did well academically are also doing different strides. So people just have varying strengths, and it's kind of hard for a teacher to just pinpoint each and every single one of them. But I think that's why these stories do so well, is because these teachers that we see on screen really go out of their way to get to know each and every one of their students and not just see them as a collective or have an expectation of them as a collective. And it is such hard work to do that because getting into someone's personality and just trying to help them out, it's also a big thing on its own. And yeah. So I feel like, I don't know, it's just one of these videos where I just sit down and ramble and talk about things without necessarily like even planning it. But with that said, so that's just basically the prime reason why I got inspired to pursue a teaching job. And these are like, again, the films that I mentioned, the dramas that I mentioned, the characters that I mentioned, they are the ones who really inspire me to want to become one, and they're my current inspiration in living out the values and translating that to like the students that I'm currently handling. So I don't know, this has just been, I don't know, just a random ramble waffle fest as usual. So yeah, so tell me down in the comments below, what's your favorite Japanese teacher drama? Not necessarily the whole sensei seto type of relationship thing. I think that's a conversation for another time. But tell me down in the comments below, like who's your favorite J-drama, Asian drama teacher? If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. And if you're new to my channel and you would want to hear more from me, please hit subscribe. Thank you so much for watching this video, and I hope to talk to you again soon. Bye!